This section of Wife of Bath's prologue is called Irritation, Anger, Fight, Deafness, and Happy End. So, as you can guess from the very name, it is a climax, a very dramatic climax where all these irritation, anger, fight, deafness, all these take place. And it also is a conclusion which is hinted at by the happy end. It is a conclusion to this rather long, almost 850 lines of speech by Wife of Bath. So, as I said in the previous lecture, we are nearing the very end of this Wife of Bath's prologue, and in this video, at least the wife of Bath's speech itself ends. It comes to a conclusion. So let's just go with the text. And of course, this section, being the very end of Wife of Bath's speech, becomes very important at so many levels. And when I saw he'd never cease in fine his reading in this cursed book at night, 3 leaves of it I snatched and tore outright out of his book as he read on. So, as we do a small recap, Wife of Bath was telling about the book that Jenkins used to read every night. It was almost Jenkins' favorite pastime, and it was the book of the wicked wives, where many women and wives were highlighted, their crimes were highlighted, all the negative aspects of womanhood were highlighted, and it was a text, a literatures which propagated the sense of misogyny in Chaucer's time. So that is the book being referred here again, and Wife of Bath already has told us about this violent incident that happened in her marriage with Jenkins, that she was hit on her ear, which made her deaf in that ear, and that happened because of this fight. So Chaucer keeps the dramatic climax for this very last section, very last part of Wife of Bath's speech, her prologue rather. And she says that when I realized that Jenkins is never going to stop reading that book, and he would go on and on reading this every night, and Wife of Bath had enough of it. So she snatched the book from him, and 3 pages from the book she ripped. This is in itself, and this section is very important for the symbolic gestures, the symbolic meanings. Now, she tore 3 pages from the book, and here she ripped 3 pages from the book, and it also is a symbolic gesture of Wife of Bath destroying this anti-female literature, because that is a collection, that book of wicked wives that Jenkins so loved to read is a collection of this anti-female or anti-feminist literature and virtues and sentiments. So Wife of Bath taking 3 pages out of the book and ripping them is a sign of resistance. It's a sign of fighting back. It's also a sign of progress, because when that misogyny is destroyed, only then can this society, this civil society, progress and move on from all that stereotyping, move on from all that misogyny. So Wife of Bath ripping apart 3 pages from the book, trying to destroy the book, is kind of very symbolic. And eke I with my fist so took him on the cheek, that in our fire he reeled and fell right down. So not only did she rip apart 3 pages from the book, she also punched him in the face so hard that he fell backwards on their fireplace. So Wife of Bath, as if she has had enough of the misogyny, of the horrible contents from that book which Jenkins used to leave, and lectured her on this, and she could no longer bear it. So although it is a bit ironical that this whole incident of domestic violence was started by Wife of Bath herself. Her husband didn't start the fight, at least the physical part of the fight the husband didn't start. It was wife of Bath herself who started this. But she had had enough, and she's just trying to justify that this is the reason. In the previous section, she has already justified why she had done it. And she could no longer bear it, so she ripped apart 3 pages and punched him, Jenkins, so hard that he fell into the fireplace. Then he got up, as does a wild lion, and with his fist he struck me on the head, and on the floor I lay as I were dead. So obviously, wife of Bath started the fight, but when it comes to physical prowess, it is not very surprising that the male would dominate. So that happened. That is what happens. Jenkins got up and he was furious like a wild lion. He was almost reeling with anger, and he punched wife of Bath back so hard at the sight of her face, and this is what made her deaf. And after that heavy punch, that wild hit, she fell and lay there on the floor as if she was dead. It was a very, very violent hit on the side of her face that Jenkins struck. And when he saw how limp and still I lay, he was afraid and would have run away, until at last out of my swoon I made, "Oh, have you slain me, you false thief?" I said, "and for my land have you thus murdered me? Kiss me before I die and let me be." So as you can understand, this is happening to be a very high dramatic conclusion to the Wife of Bath's prologue. And Jenkins, when he saw how motionless wife of Bath was, and she was almost dead from that heavy punch, and she was lying there like dead, Jenkins was afraid that he murdered her, and he was scared and he was trying to run away. When wife of Bath said very faintly, because she felt the blow to its fullest, that very violent blow to its fullest, so she was almost fainting, and she faintly said, "Oh, did you kill me, you murderer? And have you murdered me for all my land and wealth?" Because as you will remember from one of the previous sections, it was wife of Bath who said that right after her marriage, she transferred all her money and property to Jenkins' name, and this act was seen as an act of love. This she had done as an act of love, and she also said that I very soon regretted this act of love, and this is exactly why she regretted. And now she calls Jenkins out when she was almost half dead from that blow, and she says that, "Have you murdered me for all my wealth? Now that I have transferred all my wealth to you, are you trying to kill me? Are you trying to murder me?" So she says that dramatically, "Kiss me one last time before I die," as if I'm going to die just now, so kiss me one last time because I love you. He came to me, and near me he knelt down and said, "Oh, my dear sister Alison, so help me God, I'll never strike you more. What have I done? You are to blame therefore, but all the same forgiveness now I seek." So Jenkins was all afraid and scared that he murdered his wife, Alison, wife of Bath. And when finally wife of Bath spoke, Jenkins came near her and he knelt down saying, "Oh, my dear wife, what have I done? I'll never hit you again, and please forgive me." And he says, "Although you are responsible for what I did to you just now, but still I ask for forgiveness." Because Jenkins wants to just pass the blame to her because he's all panicked, and still he apologizes. It's a very panicking apology though. And thereupon I hit him on the cheek and said, "Thief, so much vengeance I do wreak. Now will I die, I can no longer speak." And just then, when Jenkins was kneeling down and trying to apologize, wife of Bath hit him again, punched him again on his cheek, and saying that this is for my revenge, this is for my vengeance, and now that I've taken my revenge, I can now die in peace. So as you can understand, this is very high drama that is happening in the very last section. But at the last, and with much care and woe, we made it up between ourselves, and so he put the bridle reins within my hand to have the governing of the house and land, and of his tongue and of his hand also. So finally, wife of Bath didn't die, although she was very badly injured on the ear and she became deaf in that year, but she didn't die. She recovered, and she says that I finally recovered after some care and trouble. The word woe comes ringing again. It's kind of a deja vu, because it keeps reminding us pointing us to the very beginning of wife of Bath's prologue, where she said that she will discuss all the troubles, all the woe that is in marriage. And we understand now, after we come this full circle of 5 marriages, that this is the height that the woe she was discussing had reached, that she was almost murdered by one of her husbands. So that woe is very ringing to the ears. And he said, we made it up between ourselves, and finally we worked things out. We made up between ourselves, we made peace. And so he put the bridle reins within my hand. Jenkin finally, after this horrible incident, he put me in charge of the household. The bridle reins, he put me in charge of the household. And I was in charge now of all the wealth and property and the household. So finally, wife of Bath has her way. After that it took one very violent incident and lot of trouble and woe. But now she's finally in charge again. And apart from that, also his tongue, which represents that horrible things that Jenkin was saying to her, that is also now under her control. And also his hand, like Jenkin had hit her again, so the tongue and hand both were now in wife of Bath's control. And the tongue and the hand, of course, refers to the verbal and the physical abuse that Jenkin was doing to her. And finally, she says that after this incident, both the verbal and the physical abuse had stopped. And made him burn his book right then. Oh. So she will have her way. And what she did is that, because this book of wicked wives was at the base of all, was at the center of all this trouble, all that woe, and she forced Jenkin to burn the book down as a whole. First she ripped up 3 of the pages from the book, and now after all this violence and the apology, the panicked apology, and finally by God's grace that she was still alive, she made Jenkin burn the book down. And also this burning of the book has also very symbolic implication. This was, of course, wife of Bath's victory, because that book was a very misogynistic book, and it was at the center of all the trouble. She couldn't tolerate the book, she couldn't bear it any longer, all the contents of the book. And her victory, wife of Bath's victory, is seen as a feminist victory over male chauvinism, because that book represented male chauvinism and misogyny. So burning of the book, tearing the pages from the book, ripping them apart, all these are very symbolic in the final conclusion. And when I had thus gathered unto me masterfully the entire sovereignty. Now finally, after this whole series of incident, wife of Bath had her sovereignty, and she had full control over the relationship and marriage. And as I said in the previous section, she will, of course, at the end have her way. She will win, and this game doesn't end until she wins. So in every relationship, whatever series of incidents have had happened, in the end, she will be in the upper hand. She will be in a position of sovereignty, and she will be in a position of control. And even in this marriage, which at the very beginning looked so different, because she fell in love with this husband, the 5th husband, Jenkin, and she was acting in love, like passing on the property in Jenkin's name and all that. And Jenkin started to be so dominating, so domineering, that he stopped Alison, stopped Wife of Bath to go out for her gossip. She wanted to stop Wife of Bath in whatever she was doing. But finally, after all this fight, she has her control. She has regained her control within this relationship and marriage. And he had said, "My own true wedded wife, do as you please the term of all your life. Guard your own honor and keep fair my state." So finally, Jenkin, who was so dominating as a husband, he said that you are my true wife. Do whatever you want in life. You have full freedom, full liberty from now on, and just preserve your honor and my household and my properties, because now Jenkin also passes on the household back to Wife of Bath again. That same property and wealth that Wife of Bath had passed to Jenkin out of an act of love are now also passed back to her, and she also regains her privilege. So she gets sovereignty, she gets back liberty, she also gets back her wealth and property, and this is what she has always wanted. And after all this violence, all this trouble, this violent episode, Jenkin and Alison are finally reconciled in their marriage. After that day, we never had debate. God help me now, I was to him as kind as any wife from Denmark unto and also true, and so was he to me. After that, she said, Wife of Bath says, Alison says that after that incident, we never had any arguments, we never had fights. I was true to him, and I was most loyal and kind as a wife, and he was the same to me. As I said, they were finally reconciled in their marriage. And this is also has a very, a deeper meaning, that real love and harmony will only arrive when this male domination end. All this misogyny, all this male chauvinism, male domination, when these things end, only then, when the woman is in control of a relationship and a household, only then will real love and harmony arrive. And the same thing happens in this relationship. And Chaucer Chaucer being so much ahead of his times, Chaucer kind of anticipates that this male chauvinism, this male domination lies at the root of all the violence and the woe in marriages and relationships. And that is why Chaucer is still so relevant to our times, because he could see this so far out. I pray to God who sits in majesty to bless his soul out of his mercy dear. So we understand now that Jenkin, the fifth husband, is also now dead. Wife of Bath is again a widow. She's again single, and she's willing to go for her sixth husband, and that is why she's going on for this pilgrimage. And she says that I hope his soul rest in peace and God grant him mercy. Now will I tell my tale if you will hear. So this is the end of Wife of Bath's prologue, the very long prologue, as we've been doing for so long. Now she will begin her tale. And of course, Wife of Bath's tale is not in your syllabus. You have only Wife of Bath's prologue in your syllabus, but we'll discuss this tale in one short lecture, the summary of the tale, because that deals again with the female sovereignty. So it relates to Wife of Bath, although that is not included in your syllabus. So when we come to the end of this section, we see this as a conclusion to the lengthy prologue, almost 850 lines of speech by Wife of Bath alone. This completes her account of all the 5 marriages, and she always has a special place for Jenkin, the fifth husband, her last marriage, and she discusses at length about the fifth husband. So this section is also a conclusion to the Jenkin episode, the Jenkin marriage as well. It is a very dramatic conclusion. As I said, this is high drama. Wife of Bath ripping 3 pages apart and then hitting Jenkins, he falls into the fireplace, and then he gets up fiercely like a wild beast, and he hits her so hard that she falls down as if she was dead, and she becomes deaf in one ear, and then she pretends that she's dead, and then when Jenkins kneels down, she hits him again, and finally they reconcile, and it is a happy ending. So it's a very high drama. Final harmony and reconciliation happens between Jenkins and Alison, the wife of Bath. And this section is also important for very deep symbolism that happens in this section, like the ripping apart of the pages, the burning of the book, and the reconciliation happening after the male domination ends. So this was the section, and this is also the end of Wife of Bath's prologue. We only have one small section left, that is another interruption from another character. So that is the second interruption. So that will be the end of Wife of Bath's prologue. We'll see you again in the next lecture.